So if I was throwing,
It doesn't have the other.
no.
That's okay. All right. So we are going to start our meeting here. I'm gonna let Nicole lead, but I do want to start by telling you guys about our new attendance policy because we want people to be on time, and we kind of want to do about 5 minute window at the beginning for you to attend, for your attendance to count. I know it's a 2 hour meeting, but we have like a lot of work and stuff to do, so we want to make sure that people are there on time. And if you need to communicate ahead of time that you're going to be, like 20 minutes late, that may leave some more room there.
I think having it at this location for me was a lot easier when I didn't realize the parking struggle.
Yeah, downtown. Yeah.
I was like, what?
No, and they always have plenty of parking there.
So I think that this helps a little bit for me
sure.
coming from Wesley Chapel.
That works. Okay. Otherwise, I thought we were gonna have a new member here to introduce.
I thought so too. He said he was going to come, and I thought we were going to have a couple people online that had said like we're interested. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes.
Who was it, Nick, or who are you expecting?
Nathan and then Nick online. Yes.
All right.
Maybe they'll join us a little later. We'll see. If they pop on here. Also gonna you take some notes on here for certain things, but otherwise, okay, sure.
Okay, perfect. So welcome, Jenna.
Thank you.
So I know like you're part of, so I don't know if you know my story a little bit, so I'll introduce myself and then Amanda can introduce herself. So I own Doobie's Farm and Market, which is a 2.5 acre kind of like homestead, but we're in production and we have a produce stand on our property. We also offer home delivery, and then we support and aggregate from 4 other local farmers in Pasco County mainly. And then I have a nonprofit we just launched called Access to Fresh, which is focused on access to fresh, healthy, nutritious food, and then food literacy as well. So, really trying to figure out the development needs for like micro distribution and how we can support smaller scale growers. That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out that niche. Before this, I worked at Target for 20 years, so then retired to do some stuff within the local food system. And I've been part of Homegrown Hillsborough, for 5 years now, right? Since the start.
Wow.
So just really excited from the economic development standpoint, how we can get buy-in for mainly infrastructure support, and what that could mean for like supporting our local food system. So a little bit about me.
And I'm Amanda Alfara. I'm the project coordinator for the City of Tampa's economic development team. And one of our areas of focus right now is expanding food access in Sulphur Springs, East Tampa. And so that's how I got involved in this organization about a year ago. And it's certainly been helpful just to help me learn about the food system in general and to make connections as we're moving forward with the advocating to the city leadership to kind of get some funding for infrastructure type of things that we need in order to help support some nonprofits who are actually boots on the ground trying to address those issues.
That's a neat thing to have the city representative this year. My name is Jenna Kazmarski, and I'm a registered dietitian. As I mentioned earlier, I spent most of my career in Polk County, living in Tampa, driving to Polk County, ran the school nutrition program there. Now I do consulting, and then in 2021 started the nonprofit Locally Grown to support farm to school programs. We do some statewide work, but because we're based here in Tampa, that's where kind of our programmatic work happens with Hillsborough County Public Schools. And but I do consulting in the realm of farm to school nutrition programs, local food systems, like that whole kind of space. Was obviously hoping that we'd have the farm to school work group, but trying to find a new home for us to kind of fit into, to still have farm to school programming be supported and active with Homegrown Hillsborough. I've also been involved since the very beginning. It's really a helpful platform for us to have and utilize, and it's grown our network quite a bit. The reason I chose this work group to participate in is because there's a real need for, as you were mentioning, like aggregation and distribution, like hub type situation when it comes to farm to school, especially when we start to engage with smaller farmers. Some of the larger players in the state of Florida can get their product where it needs to go and they have that infrastructure. But when you're really talking local and you're really trying to engage with smaller farmers and getting that product to schools, there's a huge gap. And it's very complicated for them to try and get into the existing distribution system. So that's where I see like some connection and hopefully some opportunities.
Absolutely.
But we locally grown does work primarily to assist schools, but what we try to do is connect other programming that might be happening. So community gardens that maybe are teaching kids about gardening, or food education in more of a classroom setting, helping those people understand school meals and connecting it so that kids can take what they're learning in the garden and translate it into healthier eating when they're in the cafeteria. So we're very big on connecting people that are doing that kind of work and connecting the messaging and getting it to have bigger impact with our kids.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that that's a huge part of the economic development, right? That is, how do we focus on that from an agricultural standpoint and having the tools available to support the growth of smaller growers? And when I say smaller, maybe less than 10 acres, right? What does that look like? Because they don't have that ability. They don't have the refrigerated trucks and all of that. So, but then also those outlets, right? So like, if they're growing 100 pounds of kale, like how are we distributing that? How can we don't even have a way really to process that. So that's kind of, I think that aligns perfectly. So I think even though we didn't do the farm to school, this is the perfect group, right? And then the economic impacts available for farm to school. Like when I was hearing the sheer dollar number of how much money is being put into school meals, and then now there's new appropriations that are being aligned with supporting to offset some of the costs. How do we connect those dots, right? So how do we get some of that 38 million that was just announced, right? And like, so I think that this will work really well because that is such an economic driver, right? Like,
they are a huge, schools are such a huge buyer, and often they're buying stuff from far away that they could get much more locally. So
absolutely. Very cool. Awesome. Well, welcome. So glad that you've come. No one online yet? All right. So we have a couple other members, but one is at a conference and the other one had an emergency where she had a situation with work. So hopefully maybe she'll be able to join us at the end. All right. So posts on the platform that members found valuable. So definitely found the Bloom TV one very, very valuable. I'm going to go to the, have you been, you're on the network. That's how you found this. Yeah. So what about you? Did you find any?
I honestly did not get much of a chance to dive into the platform.
So we'll go on to the platform. You want to
see what's on your page. I don't think there was too much activity.
No, I think that there was just the post that Amanda did, and then we did the final call post, right? For
what was this article?
I did want to look at that. I didn't get a chance.
Yeah, so that article is really interesting, right? So essentially, because we started to talk about, we called it scan-based trading at Target, but we started to talk about the reducing the liability for like corner stores, right? So then as we were looking at that, let me pull that up because it was interesting because it's almost like buying it on consignment, right? And then let me log in.
It's big enough for you guys to see back there.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Make it bigger.
Yeah.
I can.
That'll be easier than that's making me log in again.
This was basically
The overview of that. And I clicked into the article as well. Can you click into the overall? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So it's basically like a mobile market, but farms themselves doing it, stepping into communities.
like little like stands usually, like up the street, And
Oh, yeah.
sometimes they're really honor system type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Probably see them driving and been like, oh, I should like stop there. You know?
Yeah.
Is there something you want to like?
No, I just, if there was any other like high level things for that. So I think that so Kitty had reached out to me about, they're trying to do like a farm, like for one of their community gardens, right? And like, what does that stand look like? And my first response was, you don't have any refrigeration, so you get hot really quick, right? So being careful, like with the green, so like maybe you can add like a small refrigerator space, what that looks like. I think in theory they're great, but like you said, if you don't know that they're there, you're driving by, like I should stop, right? But I guess what would be interesting there too is is there a map of all of them? Like, so there's a lot of organizations right now trying to do all the mapping of like where the local farms are and then those farm stops. And then the other thing too is like, I think that sometimes that'll generate a lot of waste because you don't have like a lot of consistent customer base, right? So
yeah, it's like inconsistent for the grower and the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I can't guarantee they're gonna be there, right? That can't be my sole source, but if I'm driving by, I might stop.
Yeah.
And for the person trying to sell, I'm sure they go home with a lot of waste.
Yeah.
So it's like helpful. I was curious if the article had anything like new that made it more sustainable or solved some of those issues at all. I didn't know if it was just.
I'm share my screen online, but I don't want it to share the whole Salem thing. Oh, it's this one. That's the thing. Just further recording. Okay.
Do they have to have like permits for that kind of thing? Like,
so I know we don't have to, we do.
Mhm.
We have like a mobile food license because we're a mobile market, right? So they couldn't tell me what licensing I needed. So I was like, well, and they're like, well, you could do everything if you're a food truck, right? So
okay, so you just got the best.
I got the
cover
food truck one. So then if we wanted to do like prep or whatever in a commercial kitchen, we have a commercial kitchen partner. So if I wanted to make fruit salads or whatever, we have that ability. But I guess it would depend on where it's located.
For sure.
Like,
I know the city you would definitely have to for any like fixed addition to your property like that, you would have to get a permit for. So,
and we're zoned
Were
because
most of these on people's own property or?
Usually they are like, you know, on the edge, like by the street, stuff like that.
Right.
Like a little literal like stand
Yeah.
that has like a little fridge and says like, you know, this is in here, this is over there. That's what I've seen.
yeah, it would be interesting to see how many there are in this area.
Yeah, especially like
And
close to like this, you know, like downtown. Because I've seen them out like by Eureka Springs, like near the extension office, like out in Sutton, like, because then it's kind of an easy way for farmers to just sell direct to customers without having to have somebody sitting out there, you know, like all day talking to people or whatever. But when people drive by, or you can give it to your neighbors without having to knock on everyone's door, being like, look how much kale I have. Like, who wants to come over?
who wants the zucchini today?
Everyone wants to just stop at your farm stand and they want to grab something for a couple bucks in the box, you know.
So no one's manning it in this model.
I mean, I don't think so. I could be wrong.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. This is called a grocery store.
But this one has, so there's different models. Like that one has like a consignment where the farmers have space in the grocery store. They bring it and then it's on consignment. So then they get paid as it sells versus the retailer. Like we buy everything. So if we don't sell it, we own it. Which I think is just a little bit better for the farmer anyways, just because then they're not having to take product back.
This actually says, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I think I'm thinking of not farm stop. I think they're defining it differently. This says there's only 18 known farm stops operating in 12 states, with more likely to be operating that may resemble the farm stop model. So I was thinking like
a specific definition there.
As a nonprofit co-op. Yeah. So maybe I'll dig into this.
yeah,
You know, I didn't get to that link. So, because it's 24 pages, right?
Yeah.
So I did not dig into that. I looked at the overview a little bit more. So I'll put that in as a homework.
yeah, for sure. I'll read that as well. It's interesting.
The thing was, you know, people have those little stands. Maybe those are called something else. Farm stand.
I know that the Coalition of Community Gardens is working with the city to develop, instead of like a farm stop, it's like an app that they can like sell their produce to residents with and stuff. So I don't know.
She's
everywhere. Like
Yeah.
posting stuff. Have you spoken to her?
Yeah, so.
Okay.
What's it called?
Barn Pixie, but it's not launched yet. It's gonna be.
Oh, maybe that's it then. I don't know.
You know, like Homegrown.
Yeah.
I think it's lemongrass, honestly. That sounds more familiar to me.
There's transactions. Whereas Barn Pixie is more like Craigslist, where it's like you just list stuff and then you meet up with people and you do the transaction, and it's not as formal. It's more like just telling people like where stuff is available.
Right.
You know? So, but it hasn't launched yet. But it should. She said in the coming months.
And
So.
lemongrass is the one I am familiar with.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I honestly can't confirm that the sustainability team's working with them on that, but that's just
You're
what
probably right.
Yeah, that's what it sounds familiar.
They were active anymore this year, but maybe they are. Okay, are we?
So I'll take, are you taking note? I'll take notes. So I just take them on my computer.
It's like the Zoom thing does.
Oh,
a
it takes,
summary.
yeah.
So
Okay.
it'll say like if we said like okay we'll do that for next time. It'll say like action items.
Oh.
And it'll tell us. Yeah, so I'm just gonna send the Zoom summary to.
AI is so helpful. It really is helpful.
Great. Love it. Love it. So I think we'll review the farm stop article, see if there's any opportunities there, for some of the grant stuff that we're looking at. And then discuss new developments, assigned readings, other learning outcomes, and important news. So I think there's a couple of important news. So HB 89, which was the
state statute about the rule.
Yes, that's, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah,
see
so I
that.
got let me see what the email says. Hold on. But we have a, yeah. So. Because he sent, I think it was today.
My wife, I would remember. What's it called?
ECC, Entrepreneur Collaborative Center. Oh, it's actually right there. if you need it.
So I think HB 89 was paused, so it's not moving forward at this time. So it'll be reintroduced into the next, and that was like the like small format grocers in food deserts, and then some zoning stuff, and it was really very vaguely written as far as what nutritious food was, percentage of nutritious food, and it would almost allow like any convenience store to go in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited to see it pause to maybe, because at the Food Policy Advisory Council, PASCO, we looked at that in depth and provided feedback to the sponsor of it, and they updated a little bit. But so I think that that's something that was kind of big. And then the other thing that I just got to was, it might be a good opportunity, that the language, there's, so right now they're waiting on the governor's signature for a start date of July 1st, 2025 for 38 million into farm appropriations. So that is, I'm trying really hard to learn all these different things.
Well, while you're looking for that, I can give one new. So USF, they have their think tank. I've been touching base with the economic opportunity one or economic development one, and they their next meeting is June 2nd, and they've asked me to help coordinate to have the city come and answer questions about the land development code. And how that'll work for them as they're meeting. So the think tank, they are struggling to kind of find a professor who has the bandwidth to like lead this initiative. And so right now they're really like just trying to learn more. They're in that type of phase. And so I'm going to try to coordinate with the surrounding counties and cities and try to get them on there as well. So it'll be like an open forum to ask questions about the land development code. So if you're interested, be happy to, I'll post that on the Homegrown Hillsborough platform once we get everything solidified with who's going to be there and such. And, you guys all can come and ask your questions. So.
And then it's SB 2500 and it's 1459C, special categories, farmers feeding Florida. So I think that would be maybe something for us to review in detail for the next meeting, because it's going to be hopefully signed by so SB 2500, and then it's 1459C, special categories, farmers feeding Florida. And then there's some details in the last one that I have. And then it goes into, there's another one. So then there's 1459C, and then the other one is 38 million. And then there's some specifically for like food bank infrastructure, and then it's broken down, and then but the rest of it is available for other projects. So it's so there's the information kind of not. So I think that'd be good to review as well. Hopefully it'll get signed like it's supposed to.
That's how I stylized it. I just wrote it in there. Like, I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be written or not.
It's good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
I think that's it. I received some slides from a food as medicine conference it's actually in Palm Beach. And it really just talked about kind of what these programs are looking at as far as the institutions adopting them. And then there is opportunity for Section C, I guess it's, I don't want to say the wrong one. There is, so Advent Health as a organization is interested in participating, but the food is medicine. So I do sit on the Tufts. So after today, I'll have Tufts Food and Nutrition call. But Tufts is leading an initiative here in Florida in section. So, you know what? I can share these. I can put them in the platform. Actually, I don't know if I can. I guess I could. They're public.
From the resources, if it's related to food as medicine, you maybe would want to put it with the food access group.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it hits all of what I'm seeing is the gap there is the focus is like how fast can we get this rolled out versus how we can support local growers, how we can focus on nutrition density, how we can make it more circular economy. But Region C is open for a food as medicine excellence champion. So right now, Region C is just Pasco and Pinellas, but I'm proposing to become Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough because they have Hillsborough with Manatee, Polk, Hardy, and Highlands right now. So just thinking about the work that Homegrown Hillsborough is doing, and then that tri-county kind of distribution, and maybe incorporating Polk because.
Well, I think they're tricky, and like part of the reason, I don't know if that's part of the reason, but those counties where Hillsborough is included with, they do their they work together, all the county health departments work together in those counties and they do joint work.
Which would make sense.
Yeah, but it does.
But
It's so tricky, like who to
Yeah.
work with who, and everybody does it differently for different initiatives.
because the All Health Collaborative.
Maybe that's what I'm
Health
thinking of. Yeah.
is you're right, because I think Hillsborough is not in the same as Pinellas, and so I was going to reach out to her because that's open. So I know my nonprofit's interested in being kind of a co-chair to learn more about that opportunity as it relates to economic development, right? So there's funding there for test programs to support food as medicine, and significant funding from private partnerships such as American Heart Association and Rockefeller for infrastructure development specifically, right? So that's part of that conversation there. So that might be something I can post those slides.
So just a question. So is it open to Hillsborough County or just for Pinellas and Pasco right
No,
now?
it's open for the whole state.
Okay.
So, but what they did is they broke it by regions to try to get champions
Okay,
within each region. This is very new in the nonprofit running. It seems to be very small. So I'm going to reach out to her. So Advent's interested in launching a food as medicine program. Contact through USF's one of USF's like nutrition colleges, right? So Advent wants to partner with them, and then potentially us be like a distributor to start to execute some of these lifestyle medicine programs. But understanding the economic development impact that could happen because it's Advent Health, right? So we're looking at maybe 4 or 5 hospitals, and what does that kind of test look like, and how can we support? So I think that might be valuable. So I can share that in the.
So I have this nonprofit I've been working with. They are called Dream Builders Mission in Sulphur Springs, and they right now they distribute about 425 food boxes to just Sulphur Springs residents a week, and they want to expand it to about 1,000 a week, which is amazing. And so one of the gaps that they're seeing in their operations is that there's the seniors that live in Sulphur Springs, like they're aware that they can come to Dream Builders Mission and get food if they need it, but they don't have transportation to get there, and it's too far of like, they can't be walking carrying these heavy boxes back. And so is that something that like I could refer him to get looped in with, so he could kind of talk about like how he could get some funding from Advent Health to help? Because I'm like, those to me that seems like aligned, like he's trying to help with seniors and such. So
yeah, I think so. Right now, they're not putting a lot of funding into it. They're like tests, like so the way it works is there's the pyramid. So you have like medically tailored meals, medically tailored groceries, prepared bags. So I think that there will be an opportunity. Right now, they haven't really like.
I'll just pass along to see if he's interested.
Yeah, I'd love to connect with him though, because
he's such a sweet guy.
There was a grant that we just wrote with Southeast, and then our expansion essentially is to provide home delivery. So we're using the grant funding to be able to provide home delivery to residents that are homebound.
Oh my God, yeah, that'd be great.
And then so we can talk to him about that. That grant's a little different because you have to be paid for the produce. So we're doing a reduced like $10 box, so they'll get $25 worth of value for the $10, right? So we're still, the idea is that they're paying for some of it, and the grant's offsetting.
Yeah, I'm not sure all the details of how he's structuring his nonprofit is actually based on helping homeless people. So this is like in addition to like what he's already doing. Yeah. No, it is. It's really impressive. And I've just been trying to help him along the way, and I think Monica posted that reinvestment fund grant on the platform, and I sent it to him. And I was like, you should apply for that stuff.
And I have a really reasonable grant writer. Her package is $250 for 10 hours.
Oh, that's affordable.
For a nonprofit. So I think she has a grant to support food insecurity nonprofits, right?
Wow, yeah.
So she's being offset from that, but she's only charging $25 an hour. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
I'll give him a call and kind of brief him, and then I'll just make a warm introduction between you and him.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to him a little bit about what he's doing, because that's economic development. If we can get funding to even purchase produce from local farms for him to put in those boxes,
that'd be great.
We're doing that as well. So I'm keeping an eye. My sister-in-law's 5 minutes away, and then I will not be so distracted. I'll be very quick. So priority areas. I think we've gone through all that. So priority areas, infrastructure, business development, and innovation. So, infrastructure. Now, Hillsborough County received CBDG DR.
Yes.
And then is it same as Pasco County with 30% can go to mitigation and resilience building?
I'm not really
Okay.
that looped
Okay.
into that, so I'm not sure, but I do know for Hillsborough County, all of those disaster resource funds are being put towards residentials. None was allocated towards businesses. So
Okay.
for Hillsborough County, at least,
Got
I
it.
don't know
Okay.
how each of the
So
other cities did that,
Pasco
but-
did 30% to, well, we're still in our action plan. So next week our action plan will be, but we are proposing a food hub to service Tampa Bay, right?
Oh, nice.
So not our work, we don't just, like I was in Hillsborough yesterday, right? Doing work in Hillsborough. So our work, we're not just in Pasco, we work with Pinellas and work with Hillsborough. So really we're trying to figure out a location. And I know Dolly is working on something. She had sent me the grant for the food hub
Yes.
as well. So as that moves through, we might be able to support.
Yeah, I can give you an update on that. So
Okay.
next Tuesday, I'm going to be talking to the city administration on advocating for the Wells
Awesome.
submission for that. And so we'll probably next month have a little bit better of an idea if the city's willing to support that. And then there's going to be, we have a Sulphur Springs like action plan right now. And the planning team's going to go to city council in October as well to advocate for some money. They're kind of ready to invest in Sulphur Springs. And so if she's going to include that in there to try to get some funding too. So we kind of have two different opportunities here to get the city to commit to some funding. And so I'm going to propose to the city administration that we loop in Hillsborough County and try to get them to collaborate with us. And then I would love if you could help connect me to Advent Health and Tampa General Hospital to help see if I don't know if you have a contact at Tampa General Hospital, but Advent Health at least.
Yeah, I don't. Alyssa would be the contact for
because I think that the submission that the Wall said they need 300 to 500,000 for 3 to 5 years to make it happen, and I think if we get all three of those people in a room, they can all contribute a little bit, and we can get to that 3,500.
On the Pasco side of things too, right? So we have the county, we have UF Extension and Pasco. And then so the county has that CBDG money, and then of course Advent Health, but then also other partners that might be key would be American Heart Association. Because they, I met her.
I didn't think about them.
Ago. So that might be another partner to help build that out. And then else were we trying to think? And then for us too, like we're looking at Pasco Housing Authority, right? Like, do they have any community benefit money that they're spending or grant money? The Area Agency on Aging would be another one, especially if it's seniors, right? That we're distributing to. That might be a great one for Dream Builders.
Yeah.
And then, from a non-positive economic development side of things, so the state of Florida has the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which is the farmers can distribute produce to low-income seniors. Seniors get a one-time distribution of $40. Well, the Department of Elder Affairs could not get the MOUs done in time, even though we've been doing it for 3 years. So that funding isn't it doesn't look like it's going to be released in time before the end of the season.
Yeah.
And this is a program that's been going for years, and we can't get it because of some admin stuff. So part of my follow-up with that is I'm reaching out to our state senator, right? And just kind of talking about, as we appropriate money, can we work with organizations that can make things happen like the WOW? Can we work with the WOW to make sure an MOU gets signed and then a PO is drawn versus relying on some of the government agencies that we can't get in touch with because then the money just sits there.
Yeah.
And that's money that should go into the farming, right? Go into supporting the local farms, because that program is very different. It has to be all Florida grown. So it does really help this end of season push. And then the seniors, they get to it's kind of great. They'll get together at we normally do my community dining spots where we distribute the bags, and they'll give them recipes and different things, but the seniors will actually do some prep together. So that way they don't waste anything. They put it in freezer bags, they'll wash and put it in freezer bags there, right? It's awesome. And then they go home and then they just put it in their freezer. Mm-hmm. So, cause we were concerned about the waste, right? Cause $40 is a lot of produce for the seniors. Yeah. So for infrastructure, I think that's great. We're still for us, the hardest part in Pasco County is the land and like where would we put it? So I did find
that's our hardest problem too. I was just telling Savannah that earlier, and so that's why I kind of think it might have to be moved towards East Tampa versus Silver Spring, because East Tampa just has more spaces, and so I mean that's kind of idea we're playing around too. So
the location versus where you're going to service, right? So if they like maybe put you the locations in East Tampa, you can still service.
Yeah, 100%
with that, and that's kind of what we're looking at with ours. But is really trying to figure out the right place for that. So I know that there was some. So I think infrastructure we talked about is definitely like the biggest need all around, and kind of you reiterated that with what you're seeing too. So that's nice to know, like from the farm to school side, like we're seeing that from all organizations that are in this work.
Anybody know what happened when Feeding Tampa Bay moved? What's in the space they used to exist in?
I don't know.
That just dawned on me. I don't know if something else went there, but they had such a great infrastructure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna step out and I'll be right back.
That made me curious.
Our next regular meeting is at Feeding Tampa Bay, so I
Oh,
kind of
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, because they had kitchen, they had just I wonder.
Well, while she stepped out, I can give some business development updates from the city perspective. So we're about to open up our CDBG program for economic development. And so any micro enterprise, which CDBG terms as 0 to 5 employees, one being the owner, or small business, which is 6 to 99 employees, they can apply to be in this technical assistance program. And so it's for anyone from just an idea stage. We're going to have an incubator, and then we're going to have the micro enterprise technical assistance and the small business technical assistance. It's going to cover stuff from like marketing, financial literacy, business plan. Because we are using CDBG funding, it is limited to either people who are low to moderate income, or the business has to be serving low to moderate income people. And so for micro enterprise and the incubator idea, it's going to be the individual though. They have to certify their incomes low to moderate income. And then for small businesses, it is the service area. So that's going to be, we have our preliminary meetings with those agencies who are going to be supporting us with that tomorrow. And so probably be announcing it next month sometime. There will be a $1,000 grant given to every organization who participates in the program, which is, completes the program. And then also we are toying around with the idea of, we have some extra funding and we want to create like a credit enhancing program. And so we've been meeting with lenders to try to, for people who have bad credit and can't get traditional lending, the city will buy down up to a $2,500 loan just to help them build that credit. And then we're also going to have a down payment assistance program for a business who needs to buy a capital purchase. And that is going to be a loan up to $50,000. The city's contribution will only be 10% though, so up to $5,000. So.
And this is for for-profit businesses, not nonprofit, right?
Either one, yeah. And it's just, you just have to be within the city of Tampa limits. So, yeah. And then I have another business development one. Let me see if it comes back to me. Let me see.
These priority areas we developed at the last meeting that I don't know if you were on, we started.
On for like half of it.
Yeah, so I don't know if we started. So they're developing these, and then after this, we're going to be making goals that are being more specific, and they're kind of, this was to like narrow more of the scope, and then the goals will be even more specific, and that's, anyone who's going to be applying for a grant will have to basically say why it's relevant to the goals.
Yeah.
Or the priority areas. We should be done, I'll talk about this later as well, but the goals will be done around the time that we're opening the like first set of grants this year, next month actually. So it's May, in June. We'll be opening in June.
Yeah.
And it'll be like wrapping up the goals next meeting hopefully. So maybe more people will come.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Get those goals solidified. But since you're here, Jenna, you are welcome to contribute as well. Listen, we can lean it however.
I know, right?
Your voice, because the updates. I was just expecting us to like look at these and be like, okay, so this is what they are. So now we can start working at the goals. But like,
Yeah.
It's helpful. We still have, an hour and 15 minutes. So
Yeah, this actually might be helpful for each, because I know you're in the city of Tampa limits, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So last city council, there was a motion made. So typically for like, they call it the social impact funds. And so those are like nonprofits that we just traditionally have just been giving the same nonprofits the same amount of money every single year. And there was a motion last city council to make that an application process where the city is going to be reviewing those and deciding what to allocate every single year. There's more to come to that. So when that does become available, I'll make sure to post that on the platform too. So everyone can have the opportunity to submit an application, and then that'll be on an annual basis. And,
That's awesome.
you know, just help make sure that more people are being funded than the same traditional ones that we've been funding. So.
All right. So we had the mini grant, yeah, so I want to get down to that for sure. So
The purpose of like reviewing these priorities was so that we can work on the goals.
okay,
And then I think at the end, we can just save this, like we can do this for the rest of the meeting, and then I'll save maybe like 20 minutes for me to go over this last stuff.
Got it.
Because we're gonna have some stipends and then the mini grant application when I drafted it up. I just want to get some feedback. And then to stop at that. So maybe I'll save like 30 minutes.
Okay.
In case
perfect.
sometimes takes a while. So that would give you like 45 minutes to work on the goals. So that's why I had the priorities here. So you can review these and then work on your goals. And I have the, smart lingo written out to remind you that's how your goals should be. However you want to do it. I would say the goal, there can be like 1 to 3 goals. If you have like one big goal and like that's what you want to work towards is like one specific thing, you can do that. But since you have 3 priority areas, if you want to make 3 specific goals to address those priority areas, I think that would make sense too. It's really up to you guys. And we don't have to finish them this meeting. They have to be finished at the June meeting. So if you want to, like,
we can send them
draft today.
Okay.
That'd be good. Then our other team members can.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can look me to come to the next meeting.
Yeah.
So I think last time the rule was like, start thinking about it. So that would make sense. So it's really up to you guys how you want to do it.
I'm gonna pull up the last one that we had with all the goals and stuff that
I
we.
think that's what this
Is it on
these
the
priority areas is what I
Yeah.
wrote down from that. So, but also.
So it's what the organizations have to adhere to when applying. So
So that's why you want to be specific, but like you can do a couple of them. Because we want you to reach your goals. So they have to be achievable.
So we had started to have some conversation about some of the healthy corner store stuff and what that would look like. And we had mentioned the opportunity with getting the owners on board, right? Because of loss and like who's going to manage it and what that looks like. So was that pretty much written out by like the community coalition community gardens? I know Kitty was working on some of that.
Well, I don't know what her research is. I just know from my perspective, because we went and canvassed the corner stores in East Tampa and Sulphur Springs, just kind of gauge their interest in participating in a program that would like increase their product offering and fresh food. And we just had very limited interest that was expressed by them. And most of the reasons why was because of the limited profitability of it. And them not having confidence that they are going to sell the produce. And so that's kind of, I mean, it would be great if we could, get more of them to participate. But I think like if with the hub, if you're able to get that is how you get them to participate, because they'd have that reduced rate distribution center that they can get produce for. And I think that maybe since we have that limited, that's our perspective from the city, since we have that limited interest from the corner stores, that we're hoping that advocating for that will be like a domino effect. And then the corner stores would then be like, okay, like it's here, let's go try it out. It's, you know what I mean?
Right.
So,
And even maybe with the hub would have a distributor that could almost treat it like a route, right? So
Yeah.
they could go and do, 5 or 6 stores twice a week, quick stops, fill it up, take out what's not good. They might be able to incorporate that similar to what vendors do now.
yeah, for sure. That'd be nice.
So would that be something that's worth our time to try to build out that, or is that because it's kind of contingent upon the hub?
Yeah. I
Do you
mean,
know what I mean? Like,
I think if, like, I know you guys, I don't, in St. Pete, the Well has that program with the Healthy Corner Stores, correct?
The safety treatment process.
Oh, okay. And how successful has that been? Okay. Are you familiar with their program that they have going on there?
I'm familiar with this free clinic, but not with that.
I don't think that they have sustainability. Like they are specifically relying on
The funding that you get.
It doesn't have ongoing.
Yeah. And that was my fear when I saw it. I was like, how many of them are, so they're giving them, like, I think it's 4 corner stores, is it? Or something like that. They're giving them $500 a month to buy the produce that they're selling for the first year. And they're still in that first year right now. And so that's helping address that issue of profitability, but it's like, how many are going to continue to do using it when they don't get that funding, that $500 a month to buy the produce actually. So I don't know if that's where we want to throw money behind because there's no proof of concept yet,
There's been, so like last year, one of the other like homegrown SMEs went out to Bunny and Dan's grocery in East Tampa, I think, and like kind of tabled out there, talked to people, talked to residents to kind of show like people would buy stuff from the store because these are the people who are walking the store anyway. So there's like a little bit of stuff there. I think the food access group is also looking at helping corner stores.
Okay.
But I could see you guys taking it as a like project if that's something you want to focus on, because there has been a good amount of work done already, but I think it would be kind of a smaller thing, like one store gets helped, see how it goes, and like maybe buy a refrigerator.
Yeah.
That would probably be like, I would think the coalition would like apply for that as a grant. But that's up to you guys. So just so you know, the other group is also looking at it. So
yeah, we can keep that on our list, and then when we have all of our members next month, kind of dive into it a little bit further and see what their opinions are.
And then the other, like, so one of the tests that we're doing with Advent is we're going to put the mobile market at each of their hospitals 1 day a week to kind of support that food as medicine. But what I'm wondering is if there's an opportunity where we have 1 day a week that we work with like a lower income housing authority in Hillsborough, right? So where we could bring, because we'll have the mobile market already, and what that looks like as far as proving that concept, right? And how long does it take for that to become sustainable? So that might be an option where we'll have already a vehicle to do something like that. So I don't know if that would be worth building out and we could even do it with a senior housing.
That's what I was saying. Like, you should talk to Dream Builders Mission, because the grant that I sent them, they're trying to apply for a refrigerated truck to make the delivery. So that's like, if you guys can find a way to.
Yeah. So the mobile market really isn't designed to do like the deliveries because it's
it's like for them to come and
it's
buy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's big. It's a 17-foot trailer.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think having them have that, because we're also like, one of our grants is to get just a refrigerated delivery vehicle or even just a transit van that we can
do the deliveries.
But
that, I think that's a great idea, because regardless, they don't have the refrigerated truck, so those people are still lacking access to fresh food. Right. So I think that maybe he's very
do you think he would join
our group? I don't know. He's a busy guy, and so I don't know how much bandwidth he has, but I'll invite him to the next meeting when I talk to him and see if he wants to come. But I think that there would definitely be room to do that. And I think even, I don't know, how many employees do you have? Two. Okay.
Tampa Well and like their Hannah Avenue in East Tampa, like, they kind of do that. So they have their garden and they have their food pharmacy program where they can get prescriptions, to get produce, but then they also have like Feeding Tampa Bay comes a certain number of times. I think it's the YMCA that does the veggie van.
Yep.
So some of them are free of charge, but some of them are also lower priced. So people pay. So they kind of do what you were just describing. They do it at that location, not a housing complex, but it's in an area of need similar.
And I know that Feeding Tampa Bay has very limited stops within Hillsborough County in the city of Tampa limits. Like, it's only 2 stops, 3 stops a month in the city of Tampa limits themselves. And one's a reoccurring weekly one, but the other 2 are just once a month. And so.
But if you wanted to ask, like, I don't know if you know Janice Carr that runs she runs the garden at that location, but she's very familiar with the different people that are like, it was like 3 different opportunities where they have different mobile produce coming where people can access it.
Yeah. And I think if you could figure that out, the city would, get behind that, because like we're trying to do with the Sulphur Springs action plan, we have these long-term goals. It's like, we want to fix their pool. We want to, do all these things, but we need like shorter term wins to give to the public. And that would be like a shorter term win that we could,
Yeah, it's easier to get.
do now and not in 5 years,
Shows.
Okay. So we can maybe look at that next month too, so we're launching our new market on the 11th of June. But this maybe would be something that we could look at in the fall when we're back into production, right? Or maybe even in the summer. So as we're layering in our operations and because we are hiring a couple more people to support that market going out into the hospital, but that might be an option to use it even just as a test weekly, 1 day a week, to see if that works. And then how do we then get another mobile market, right? So whether it's us or the well, what is that? Because I know theirs is just the free kinship market, right? That they're currently doing, but really that either a pay what you can model, which is that's kind of what I'm looking into researching now, is how long does it take for those pay what you can models to be sustainable by the community versus by grants? So they are typically supplemented by organizations doing donations within that community. So sometimes it's a bank, sometimes it's a lawyer, whatever. They're like, oh, we'll put $1,000 towards the pay what you can bank. But over time, they actually get to be fully community supported because someone gives an extra $5, someone needs $5, right? So what that balance is. So that might be something as far as looking into data. We have our group together of maybe everybody takes a pay what you can model or takes a different type of model and then does the pros and cons, right? So I know one thing that I would stay away from in any of the stops is something that's free, only because you can't pull out of it ever, right? The community wants, they know that you're there, right? That was a kind of if it breaks down and that's all that they're relying on, but it's not an economic driver when we're just giving it all away and relying on the grants. So the pay what you can model kind of helps offset some of that cost, but then ultimately might become sustainable too. So I don't know if that might be something we can look into as part of.
I think for my idea of a better focus area is focusing on the infrastructure versus the healthy stores, just because I think that is where the gap is. And when I think about when I was canvassing the healthy stores, the ones that had any vague interest, were already had some sort of produce there. So that isn't the overall goal of increasing food access. That's not really meeting that goal, and so that distribution is how you're going to be able to,
I agree,
reach more people. So I think if we were trying to make it a specific, measurable, achievable goal, I think that maybe we could specify okay, whatever their grant, when they apply for the grant, it has to expand food access in a census tract that's considered a low income, low access. Which I have a map of that if you need one.
I do.
Within the city of Tampa.
I'm trying to get the GIS to pull up. If you can send.
Yeah, I have just the city of Tampa though.
Just
so I don't have anything else, but I'll send you that one.
Because that would help for us to identify what areas, and maybe that can be part of one of our meetings or homework is to go into some of those areas. I know you're probably very familiar with them, where we can look at where would be a good stop, where we could make some impact as well.
Yeah, and I have connections with both the Sulphur Springs and East Tampa community groups, and they are really the voices for those communities. And so that's a great person to have those conversations with, because they're going to know where's going to be a good spot for community gatherings, where the community is heading to, where you're going to be able to get those reaches,
Yeah, that would be awesome. So that might be, yes.
Janine is here.
Hi.
She's on.
Hi.
Okay, we can.
How's it going?
I'm gonna get on camera so y'all could see me.
Hello.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Hi. How are y'all doing?
Good.
And then
We
can totally hear you really well. So chime in as we're talking here.
Yeah, so we're working on just reviewing our priority areas that we had established last month, which was the infrastructure, business development, and then innovation. So we kind of had the conversation about the healthy corner stores. I don't know did you just hop on?
I did.
Okay,
I've been listening to you guys for maybe 10 minutes or so.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
cool.
So you probably heard what we said about the healthy corner stores, and that might just not be the best opportunity just because there wasn't huge interest, and maybe looking at some sort of weekly pop-up spot in a low income, low access area um, to help with like bringing produce into those communities as well. We also discussed the need for the infrastructure. Like that is like the biggest need that we are talking about, is that a lot of these programs are going to require the infrastructure to be able to support them. Because even as I think about the mobile market, if I add another stop, it's like,
And where does that money come from? Yeah.
well, and how do I even like support that within my, my small refrigeration that we currently have? And that's where I'm struggling, because we're not big with so we might have to, and instead of it being my mobile market, maybe we work with Feeding Tampa Bay and see if they can bring their mobile market very specifically to get data in those areas, or with Elizabeth and her mobile market. She's here.
Yeah.
But her mobile market with the YMCA.
I didn't realize the YMCA had a mobile market.
They do, but they only do bundled produce.
Oh, okay.
There's both sides of it, where you can just bring produce and then you can, people can shop for what they want, or you can do the bundled produce. I think that they were doing it for like $1 a bag. And it's just kind of whatever they're able to get. I believe they're purchasing it from a wholesaler as well. So when we think of how do you feel about those 3 priority areas as being like our priority as far as infrastructure, business development, and innovation? Are we still feeling good about that?
Oh, yeah, I feel really good about that. Yeah, I think that'll be a great approach for us.
And then we have, so with the,
Can I ask a
yes,
quick
of
question?
course.
When you were developing the priority areas, if you're talking about particularly 1 and 2, like infrastructure, business development, was there conversation around like the who, right? Because those are such broad areas. So who you anticipate would be interested in the mini grants, and who, like for infrastructure and business development, like is a restaurant part of the conversation if it seems like it fits in with food system work, or is it more like farms and food producers, or people who are producing like, have like honey, or wares that they create and things like that with.
So I think it's all of them as part of the idea of the economic development. So soliciting kind of all of those potential partners as we are building out, when we get into like what the mini grant requirements would be. I think that having that lens, because we do have a food production group, which would include some of the farmers, so we could almost like with the grant send that over to them to see if there's things that aligns with business development there, restaurant partners. And then I think that there's also we have partnerships already with like the Well, who is doing some of the infrastructure, like bidding. So maybe creating pilots ahead of that, where they have those outlets kind of ready when that infrastructure hopefully is approved. But yeah, I think all of them, right? Like as far as when we have the grant available and as we write the grant, maybe looking at the different components to see which one would be best to target. But we had the conversation that it's within our whole network, right? Within the collaborative network.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to approach it, just because this is our first time. And it's like, if by keeping it so wide, it's like we can really learn what all their different ideas are from their different perspectives, and then like take a look at it and be like, what do we really think is going to have the most economic impact?
On both the producer, whether it's a grower or someone making a product, and then the business that they're working with too. Okay. So
do we want that to be the only goal, or do we want it to be like list a couple, like a goal over innovation too, as we move forward? You know what I mean? Because we just really are focusing on that infrastructure.
Specific, measurable, achievable. So within infrastructure, what's specific, right? We got to kind of dig into that as well.
I think, I don't, Susanna, I don't know what your opinion is, but if like for the infrastructure, if equitable access is listed under there, so I feel like that the goal that for the low income, low access, LILA, whatever they call it, that would be a goal that we could like measure and be like, okay, this is this many, because when you look up that, it'll be like this many people live in that census tract. So it's like, okay, you doing that, you're expanding access to this many people.
Right. And then we can.
But it's just the other type of economic, you know what I mean? Besides the equitable access one that we would have to figure out the goals for, I think.
I like that.
Unless that's going to be our only goal. But I don't think it has to be. I think. Yeah. I think we can, yeah.
It's one really big goal that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna force you to do more than one, but you can't have, 2 or 3.
So, and then writing that out. So
I guess for like in an economic development standpoint, like the other thing that we would be looking at for goals of any type of high. Oh, no. Sorry. Yeah. But from an economic standpoint, like what we're looking at when we're like our department has contracts that we fund organizations for, and what we're always measuring for them is how many jobs that they're creating and how much the average wages of those jobs. So like if we want to see long full-time permanent jobs that are above a livable wage. And so I think that could be a goal too. That they're creating jobs that are paying livable wages,
So are we kind of like just building out goals for each focus area right now, or are we still in that process?
Well, Savannah was talking about these goals, like for when people apply for the grant, they have to like meet these goals that's the intention is how they're going to meet the goals. So we're just kind of walking through different goal ideas so that next week next month when all 4 of us together, we can kind of figure out what those goals are going to be.
So
okay, that makes sense.
So the first one is improve access in low income, I guess low access areas.
Yeah.
Based on census tract. And then maybe it can be like, is it with the T at the end? Tract?
No, it's T. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
And then maybe as a sub, it could be number of residents, increased access, maybe number of.
Reach out to Hillsborough County and see if they have. I mean, I can pull their census tract, but I'm not going to be able to get my GSI team to map out their census tracts. But I'll see if they have a map of their county tracts as well. So,
and then maybe dollars spent on like local produce, and we can define that. Do we want to define that as Florida, grown in Hillsborough County? Like, how do we want to define?
How would you say Florida? Because
Florida,
yeah. Is that what your opinion is?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's just easier right now.
Yeah.
And then
Hillsborough County is rough.
Yeah.
So doing dollars spent on local produce defined as Florida grown, but then also dollars spent on direct sourcing from other organizations such as like the Coalition of Community Gardens, right? So maybe we focus on what can we get from them first, and then what can we supplement from that, the wholesale market, right? If we need to go there, if we can't get 200 pounds of cucumbers and that's what we end up needing. So what does that supplement look like? But I think having that focus on.
Does that mean like dollars spent directly from Hillsborough County? So like.
Yes.
Hillsborough County and then also.
All of Florida. Yeah.
Do you want to limit it to produce?
It's a really good question.
I was just going to ask that too. I mean, do we want to open that up to other producers?
I mean, I think meat is equally as important, Yeah, meat and dairy, yeah.
Dairy, meat.
Maybe local products.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little bit and define what you're not interested in, because like a bakery.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Who knows? I mean, I'm just not saying you have to, but you should define it. But I wouldn't want to just produce maybe.
You want it to be healthy. Put
Yeah.
it that way. Yeah.
Just, you can argue anything.
Right.
And you can always edit that however you
Yeah.
want. But you can do
Yeah.
value-added products, like somebody needs a local salsa or,
Yeah.
You can just like bread, but not, like pastries,
Right.
Nice. Okay, so that is like one.
And because we can also, that goal, right, when we think of that as these are the goals, that also allows for someone like Dream Builders to apply for the grant as well.
Yeah.
Because they are servicing that area. So if they're looking to expand their expand, like they would be eligible to apply for that for the boxes too.
Yeah, I know that there's also a nonprofit in Silver Springs called Kids on the River, and they're trying to launch a Springs market, like a farmer's market in Silver Springs. He's just running into issues with funding, and so he was hoping that it was going to launch this month, but I just talked to him earlier this week, and he thinks it's going to be in October now. So
which will give him time to apply, and I think because that actually allows a couple of different organizations to apply for it. So if we worked with a mobile market, or if we want to do a little farmers market, or if we wanted to work with like the home delivery side of it, that gives a couple of different ways for the grant to be applied for and to support.
the only problem with the creating jobs one is like not all of them. We don't know if we want that to be like a check mark to be able to apply, because they're not always going to be creating jobs to expand their operations, and so
that's right.
And that salaries are the most expensive part of anything. So it's like we don't necessarily want to mandate that.
Right.
I agree.
And it'd be hard with them.
That's like more of something we want to measure long term for like how impactful our grants were, but maybe not criteria.
And like you said, this might align with what the food access is doing as well. So there might be some overlap for, supporting through both of our goals as well.
And I think that would cancel out a lot of smaller producers. So I wouldn't want to limit that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. We don't want to give the money to public,
Exactly.
I'd say we can keep it in your priority areas, but just not in full. Like just leave that out of goals of job creation. That's more of like you said, a measurable later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Long term.
So we had equitable access in all three, right? So like defining that as a low income, low access census tract helps with that for sure. Any other?
I think that is a good, if we just want to have that to start with, just because that is very broad. You know what I mean? It's like no matter what you're doing, as long as you're improving access in a low income area, low access area, you can apply,
And that may even, if there is somebody who wants to do a little farm stand that's, an honor system at their community garden, they could apply for that if they're in the low income, low access tract.
Yeah, even like what you do at the farm to schools, I feel like if you do it at a school that's in one of those areas, you could apply for that as well. So I feel like it's broad enough to not limit anybody who's in this group from not being able to apply.
I just think that it's really broad. Like, we know what you're measuring, but I think it needs to be like a little bit more focused on economic development. Like, because improving access kind of really just sounds like food access.
Yeah. Okay.
So like I think maybe just something else that like denotes how you're different from that group. So you have like infrastructure.
I think maybe if we just add on to that part about the dollars spent on local, like you're improving access in low income, low areas based on the census tract by investing dollars in the local food.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it could come from what allowable expenses are, so you could determine what they're allowed to use the grant funds for, which could help you differentiate.
So the areas based on census tract by, and then let's see, like by measuring or by
Capital expense, I don't know. Try to think how we want to phrase that.
maybe there's like a way to reorganize this to say that like kind of first, because the way it's written now, just how you're saying that, access, and so it kind of makes it the other way. So maybe saying something like, improve access in Leela areas, or maybe saying like utilizing dollars spent directly in Hillsborough County and the state of Florida grown food to improve access in Leela areas measured by like these like exact things.
Yeah, I think that expresses it. And then you know what I would do? I would just copy and paste that and do ChatGPT and be like, rephrase to sound more.
Remind me how much the mini grants are for?
So there's different amounts. So this year, before October 1st, we have $4,000. And that's all we have for this year. But next year, there's quite a few that are larger, but they're not specific to the working group. Like the working group will get its own grant. The other ones are basically for anyone, and they have to say which working group it's relevant towards. So like there's gonna be infrastructure one, and there's like some smaller ones. The infrastructure one I think is the biggest one. It's 30.
That's what I remember it being too.
Yeah, but they're not like set in stone. So we could, based off of how it goes, like we just have a bucket of money and we kind of like brainstormed how we wanted to separate it out, but it still is kind of, so there's a good amount of money, but they're still considered mini grants. It depends on how big your organization is, what's mini really,
For sure. The only reason I ask, sometimes it's helpful when you're trying to determine what you want the goal to be, is determine what you don't want to fund.
Yeah.
Because then it can help you narrow the focus to better describe it. Like if somebody had an existing operation, but they need more word of mouth, like could they spend the money on marketing? Like if you decide what is okay and what's not okay, sometimes it can help narrow your focus.
Is there a way to also, I mean, I know we're kind of talking about wording here, and I'm just thinking of how we can, like what you said, Savannah, connect it a little bit more to economic development. So yes, it's, offering access to low income, areas, but how do we tie it back to, I don't know, educating, right, that those low income areas, or I know we talked about like with the job situation, but it may not be necessarily what's the word I'm looking for, like a criteria for that, but maybe if the organization kind of shows like how are they supporting these families in these low economic areas, whether it's through education, transportation, I don't know, just those things that kind of like are centered around economic development, not saying that that particular producer is doing all these things, but how are they setting their business up to potentially support these families in the low income areas? Am I making sense?
I think so. I don't know how to like write it on here. Would that be like a separate goal or part of this goal?
Like that's part of that goal, because you mentioned like you were saying like it's not as like we need to establish more differentiation between like access. Because I agree, you're right. I mean, it does sound very similar. So changing that wording up, someone said plugging it into ChatGPT, like that might be a good idea, but then just kind of honing in on those areas that make up economic development, if that makes sense.
A popular theory in economic development, which I agree with before I get into it, is that people can't focus on economic mobility unless their basic needs are being met. And so that's like, even though food access isn't like fully economic mobility, it's something that has to be addressed before people are able to focus. Because I mean, that makes sense. If you're worried about where your next meal is going to be, you're not worrying about applying for a new job to, you know what I mean? Your focus can't be on that. And so I think that I do agree. We do need to spell this out more to include more economic development, but that is just kind of that's how it's in my offices. This fresh food access is in my office to begin with. You know what I mean? That's why you would think it would be in community development, but we are the ones leading the initiative.
That's what Joe and I suggested over here. I don't think I put it exactly the right way. But dollars spent on sourcing Hillsborough County and Florida grown nutritious food products, improve access in Leela areas, with a focus on supporting local farmers and businesses, creating jobs, and increasing economic opportunities in these communities. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I like the supporting farmers and businesses. Yeah. But even before, if you could put that all like the creating jobs and stuff, but you could put or instead of and, you know what I mean? So they know that they don't have to be creating jobs, you know?
And is there, so if we're thinking about also supporting local farmers or like local growers, I'm wondering if there's a way to like plug into maybe if the schools have food pantries and they're not getting fresh produce, so that we're seeing that as an opportunity where the grant could be, we could work with food producers or growers to purchase just merely to support that side of the economic as well. So it might not necessarily have to be that they're purchasing and selling, but there might be that opportunity of like purchasing and then having them be able to deliver to locations that are maybe food pantries that don't have the support of Feeding Tampa Bay, or if they do, they're not getting the produce, right? So that might be just another, it falls into that, but just thinking another person that could apply for the grant as well.
Or even like a business service person. I'm selfishly thinking of someone like myself, for instance, who, you know, not necessarily, you know, is a grower per se. I mean, yeah, I'm a hobby grower, but, you know, someone that offers services like I don't know, business development or marketing or advertising type thing that is centered around, you know, someone in the food system world, whether it's a farmer or a chef or whatever, or even like cooking classes or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's helpful just because, I mean, in my realm, I see business, like those type of agencies providing that support to businesses all the time, but I've never heard of one that's specific towards the food industry. Right. And so I think that could definitely be one, especially if the person works in the food industry. I think it would be helpful because a lot of these agencies that provide business consulting, maybe 10% of them have actually owned a business. So it's like, you don't know how much value do you get from that when they don't have the actual experience operating a business, you know?
And it's also in the micro distribution side of it, that's even less people who have been successful in it because it is so difficult, right? So I think having that would be helpful. But I think it would, well, I guess that because we're saying the first $1 spent on sourcing. So there would be another goal to be improving business. Support, yeah.
Food related businesses? I don't know what you call it, like food.
Supporting like technical training?
Yeah, it's called technical assistance, typically. Or I'm providing technical assistance to food related businesses.
So two separate goals being like dollars spent to improve access in Leela areas and providing technical assistance to food related businesses.
The only problem with the providing technical assistance, because depending on how much the grant are, like for the city, we pay the agencies like $1,500 per client that they serve. So if our grants are so small, that means they're gonna be able to help one or two, you know what I mean? So that's the only limitation I see that, you know.
Yeah. And how do we measure the success of that? What is that? That would be another question is how do you measure the success of the technical assistance?
That's what we do is the jobs and the salaries, and even like how much but it's like, how do you get this information from the business? They don't have to give it to you, but it's like, did your profits increase after you went through this training, you know?
Right. Is there a way to incorporate that into the first goal? Like, so that it's not like a separate thing, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's more like that your goal would include this information and not have it be a separate goal. Cause I feel like this is like very like small and like you're saying, potentially could really only go to like one.
Maybe just instead increasing economic opportunities by providing technical assistance or creating jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
So increasing economic opportunities by providing technical assistance or creating jobs.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's good. That fits in there, I think, pretty well. Okay, I think now to more like the wording on how this like starts out. Like dollar. I think it's not a goal. It's just saying like, here's what we want you to do. Does that make sense? Like it's
So
already
increase dollars.
Yeah, okay, that's it. Yes, great. That was very easy. Okay.
Okay, so let me just make sure this is what you want, because with that being the goal, the only people that can apply are people who are supplying food. And maybe that's the intention, but I just want to make sure. Because they have to increase dollars spent on sourcing Hillsborough County food.
I would say that if they can increase it without buying it themselves. You know what I mean?
Okay, so
like
that's important.
Promoting local growing, maybe that is by buying, but like if it's an education group, like we're saying, or like maybe like somebody who's teaching people gardening or something like that. Something that's promoting local food versus distributing it. But that is a good.
Yeah, because I think the way it does read right now is like
You have to increase
They do have to lead to more dollars being spent on.
So we're down the line.
Yeah.
And there could be another goal for something else. So like, this could just be a goal.
Okay.
That has like another focus on economic development. If you want to focus on infrastructure,
maybe one of the goals is build partnerships with an organ.
With Hillsborough,
With Hillsborough
That's a good
County
idea.
organizations such as schools, healthcare facilities, churches, right?
And that
So
helps
public
meet that
and
gap,
private, public and private organizations.
so like
So part of that would be building partnerships with Hillsborough County organizations, both public and private, to. I know. I'm trying to like from a goal, right, for them to apply for the grant. So they're applying for the grant. How are they building these partnerships? Because that does support Homegrown Hillsborough's mission, right? Not necessarily like and so showing that if we have a partnership with a Sulphur Springs school that has 20 families that are in transition. So that grant potentially could be used to purchase produce or for a grower who has extra to be able to supply that to that organization. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, like the club.
But it has to be partnership. It can't just be a soul. Like so you could say something like
Actually, that's a good idea.
I like that.
Because that's what the whole goal is collaboration. So
yeah, but I think that that's a very specific goal, that it's building partnership, right, or growing partnership. Public and private, both public and private. I think you're good there.
Say like must apply for grant, so we know what we meant here.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I think that gives that opportunity where it doesn't necessarily have to be someone buying it, but it's like two organizations, farmer growing it, organization willing to take it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be someone's. The grant is essentially maybe supporting the purchasing and the distribution from point A to point B, or even the grower planning for the next season with a partnership, right? So it's like, oh, I have this partnership, so I'm going to grow an extra quarter of an acre to supply a partnership. That could be a restaurant. That's kind of maybe how we can get in that partnership piece. And that kind of helps that economic development too, because you're supporting.
For sure.
Because I like that.
Yes,
I really
yes.
want to stay away from being a distributor, but if it's a farmer or somebody that's like, hey, I'm a hydroponic grower. If I have a partner at a restaurant, could the grant maybe just reduce my cost for the first 3 months to that restaurant for them to test my product and us to test it and see if that works?
Yeah.
And that could create a long-term relationship. It's almost like, hey, you can get it for half price for the first 3 months because you're willing to start to source local. Would you be interested in adding a farm to, a direct sourced menu item? And then that grower has that opportunity.
That's a great example. I like that.
Well, I think that's a good stopping spot
Okay,
for
yeah.
our goals. These are really good. So now I'll kind of take over here. So we do have continuing education stipends that are available. Like we have to spend it before October 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So I made some guidelines for you guys to look at and consider because it is so soon. It's available to the leadership team first, which would be you guys would have a voting spot. But after August 1st, if they're new, it'll be open to anyone in the network.
Okay.
We have $3,000 per working group, I believe. Let me double check that before I say it officially. I think it is though.
So it has to be applied for before August 1st.
You have to spend the month. So if it's
Before August 1st.
No.
Okay.
Before
There's
October 1st. But if you want it and it's a big amount or something, you need to do that. We allocate it.
awesome. Because there's a conference with this. Okay. And how it ties to economic development. Perfect.
Okay, yeah, so it is per working group is $3,000.
Okay.
So your group still has the full 3,000. And okay, yes. So basically, if you want to do something in your leadership, you should apply before August 1st. But it's still find something after that. Just if the money's already gone, then it's gone.
So okay. And then so that when we're applying, it would be the event, the estimated cost,
Yeah,
an overview. Oh, I'm sorry. I was
you're
reading through.
I just want to go over these are the plans for. So everything has to be pre-approved. We're not going to reimburse you if it's not prior authorized. We try to pay for stuff before because it's just easier than reimbursing. But it's for structured events and courses that will contribute to your professional development and benefit the working group's objectives, which are the goals and priorities. Things that we would consider would be registration fees for an event, a course, conference. We would do travel, which would include mileage, or if you have to do a train or an airplane ticket. And we would also do lodging, so accommodations. We do want you to follow the government guidelines, which is linked here for the per diem rates. They would not cover meals unless it's included in the registration fee. Any other personal expenses, materials that aren't mandatory, like optional textbooks, membership fees, unless you have to become a member to register for the conference, stuff that doesn't adhere to the government guidelines or anything that is incurred without written approval. So pretty standard. Okay. The request process is going through this application. It's going to ask you, name and date. I'll go through the application as well. Like I said, it's kind of subject to budget availability. So if you want to go to something, apply for it as soon as possible. Because if no one else has applied, we're gonna say, of course you can go, like, as long as it's relevant to the working groups and it's structured. That's the main thing, is you can't just be like, I wanna go visit this thing because I think it's like, I wanna go see a food hub in Vermont or something. As cool as that would be, there needs to be something else going on. Yes, like, there gotta be something. And like I said, they'll be open, to any member of the working group, which could be anyone, including like Jenna, if you're not, a voting member, you could still apply, after August 1st, because we do want to use that money. So this is the application. I don't know if it's published yet. I think, it is published. So here, I might have to like make sure to get the, what you call it, like the permissions on it to make sure you can apply. So basically you're gonna say, oh, I need to make this real quick. Your first name, last name, email, phone. What is the opportunity? The organization that's hosting the opportunity. We want you to describe it, include the dates, let us know if it's virtual, which working group is it part of, how's it going to contribute to the goals of your working group. We want the total, whatever the registration fee is, and then if there is travel information, this is where you would put it. And then with like mileage, it kind of tells you, I think it's like 70 cents a mile. So you estimate it for a round trip, and then we can go from there. That's probably more of a reimbursement situation. But I don't know, maybe not. And then lodging, and you have to check off that you understand that you will only be reimbursed for actual costs, and receipts must be provided. And when you've completed it, you also have to produce like a 1-pager type of report to your working group. It doesn't have to be 1-page paragraph text. It can be like bullets, or like, these are the key things from this presentation. If you want to make a whole presentation to do, that's great. You don't have to do that. 1 page, because then we can also share it to the other working groups. If it's really great and you are available, we might ask you to like come present to the other working group. But really just like a 1-pager that we can share so that it is helpful to everyone and not just you as a person. If it's relevant to everyone, that's what you want. So you're pretty much just agreeing that you're going to report back. And a big thing is those receipts, because we do need those for the county to show how we're spending our money. Do you guys have any questions about this application or anything about this? It's like, let me make the first name required question.
No, this is pretty on par with when I travel for the city, what I have to do. So
Yeah,
I'm
right.
good. Yeah.
All right, yeah, and the link. So right now it's just in the working group folder. Once it is, let's see if I have it open here. No, okay. I'll go to my track. It's in your working group folder. And I made a, oh my god, it's like a different shape than it normally is. Oh no, I clicked on the wrong thing. Sorry guys. I need, working groups, here we go. Okay, and here's your folder. I made a sheet that is for forms. So it's easier, because sometimes they were just like weird, like it would pop up and you would think that it was, like you had to edit it. So this is for our co-chairs, their monthly report. Then we have our continuing education requirements, and then the forms. So that's in like the main folder here.
Oh, which one is it in?
The main like working group. So the one before you go into your specific one, because it's for everyone. And hopefully it won't be a sad page. I'm gonna add more things.
Forms for working group leaders. Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
forms for
Got
group
it.
leaders.
Okay.
But after August 1st, I'll probably make a post on the platform with the link for application for anyone else. So if that's something you're interested in doing, like,
Yeah.
please go for it.
There's a couple of, and I'll share some of those conferences too,
Awesome.
like that I'm seeing, especially around, so with the food is medicine, they're having conferences everywhere. And I think that
Okay.
there's a lot for access, there's a lot for production, there's a lot for economic development that you can get out of those. So it'll align with all of them. So as I see those, but it's so interesting, like you'll hear that one happened and you're like,
Darn
how
it.
do we not?
No,
Like,
yeah, all the time.
I was like, wait, I'm in Tufts working group and they have one in Pop. I'm like, how did that? So today on our call, I'm like, how did we miss that? So, but I think there's a lot coming up and there's a lot of, I think, opportunity within that would even align with some of our goals and build partnerships, right? So for the grants, what I'm thinking too is, I'll think about it for the next meeting.
All right, so no question about that. This is our draft application, so we want I closed it so nobody could apply, like nobody could click on it and then start applying and be like, no, it's not ready yet. Let me go on my, let me grab it. I don't think it would actually work, but.
Technology.
It's all the permissions and stuff that I'm like, I don't want to put it where people can like get to it because I don't want to do it yet, but I also like want to show you guys. I think I included that on the like post my post the agenda. I was like, when you click on the link, it might not work because I don't want you to actually apply it. Okay, here it is. I'll flip over here.
Hey, Savannah, I have a quick question, or just even to the group, and I'm sure you've probably already answered this, so my apologies. But as far as like the grants, these mini grants, are working group members also allowed to apply, or are members excluded from that?
The members are allowed to apply. We want to reward you for being part of a working group, so that would be like horrible to be like, you're not allowed to apply. We're actually looking for outside reviewers from, like, I think we've asked some folks from USF, different institutes to review them, so we have like a third-party reviewer.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, so the only thing that you'll be reviewing this particular one before, the one that we need like before October 1st, and then there's a specific group, like grant called like the working group grant next year that I think you all would also do, but if that's something that like you wanted to apply for, we could figure out like how to make it like not a conflict of interest. But we do want you all to be able to apply for them for the most part. So definitely.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
No problem. And so with this one actually as well, this community building one that's available currently, the working group can also use it if you guys want to like do something. Like, I don't know, off the top of my head, it's hard to think of like an amazing idea that would make exact sense. But like if you wanted to do something that would further the goals of your working group, you guys could do that, like hosting an event or something, or trying to do some type of like, I don't know, like survey, or I don't know, really, if you want to like test the waters of people who are interested in this stuff, if you want to do some kind of event, I don't know. So you basically have to answer this.
And then the community, so this one, which is the 4,000,
Yes.
is the applications by August 1st as well.
Yes.
And then it has to be used by October 1st.
We have to distribute the funding by October 1st. So if you have an event in November, we can pay for the stuff now.
Got it.
That's how we do it.
Okay.
And we kind of talked about in the other working groups, some of them they wanted to like make the funding, they didn't want to just say like $4,000 lump sum. So we created, because we don't want just one person to take it all unless they have like a big project that would use it all, and you guys find that that is an acceptable use of your money. We've limited it to 2,000 as like a, I was like, I know I'm skipping ahead now, of course. Like how much funding are you requesting? We saying up to $2,000 in the interest of being able to award at least 2 grants. So keep that in mind. I'll actually walk through this and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
But I just wanted to like note that like that's something that we're talking about. But if you wanted to do like a partnership and like this group asks for 2,000 and this group asks for 2,000 to do a big thing, that could be cool. So we kind of just listed what it's about. Grant support Homegrown Hillsborough partner projects as they align with working group priorities. And this is for all, this is a general application. It's not just for your working group. And so I was going to also create like a sheet that shows all 3 working group priorities or goals. There will be one-time basis, notification of grants being made on September 1st. So we'll have a month to spend the money. Application has to be submitted by August 1st. So that gives us a month to review it. So we'll pretty much spend one working group meeting reviewing applications. They can be submitted on behalf of an organization or a project team. However, in the event of it not being submitted by a 501c3, a fiscal sponsor must be identified or an agreement being made through the Homegrown Hillsborough working group to distribute funds on a reimbursement basis. So that would be like through the well, basically. So like you guys wouldn't have to do it, but your working group is, you know, facilitated by the law. So the first thing, oh, I think this is meant to, oh no, okay, I get confused by this section. So the project overview section, we want their name, last name, email, phone number so we can get a hold of them, the organization or the name of the project that they're doing, the applicant's role in that project, who are the partners involved. We want to know how many partner points they have. So there's like, I don't know if you guys have seen the partner points stuff that Monica posted on the platform. We're trying to reward people for showing up and doing things. So like Jennifer attending today, like you get a point for that. But we do want people to like request the point because we don't know where everyone is at all times. But I think for the working group meetings, we just kind of, because we got attendance here. But for other stuff, we can talk about partner points later. It's a lot. I was like, I don't want to side too far.
Okay, yeah, so if we can maybe look at that for next,
Yeah,
so we get clear, so we know what we're,
Yeah, so we're asking people like, it should hold a little bit of weight, like how much they're attending, how involved they are in the network. We want the description of the project, which working group does their application fit within, and then how does it advance priorities of the working group. This is where I would probably link the like one pager on what the priorities are. So we want to know the project budget, how much funding are they requesting, the total amount, like I said, only $2,000, so that we can do at least two. If there's, two $1,000 ones and then one $2,000 one, we could award that as well. It's kind of up to you guys how you want to distribute it, but we did want to kind of max it out at $2,000. And then this is kind of where we want the budget. So we want to include the dollar amounts that will go towards all of these sections: personnel, program supplies, equipment, contracted services, marketing, communications, training. They have other categories, they can list those as well. But we also want to know if personnel costs are over 25%, what can they justify that? Because that's kind of a lot of funding to go towards that. So if there's a really great reason they can do that, great, but we don't want all of the funding just going towards personnel costs. And then we want to know how will the work be sustained beyond this investment? And then we want to know 3 additional funding sources for future stage of this project. So we're really looking for sustainable, ongoing things that aren't just here's a one-time like pop-up event, but that could include, you can do a one-time pop-up event, but how is that furthering, your organization? How is that contributing to the future, And so that's why we're really looking for these questions. But if you guys have any feedback on these questions, or if you think we're missing something, or you don't like how something is worded, I'm open to notes.
I think 3 additional funding sources is a lot.
that's what I was gonna suggest.
Someone might just have one really good one.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think.
That's true. Especially if we're looking at like some startup or some.
Yeah.
And you would maybe just ask them to provide the amount, so then like how much they have and if it really is going to be sustainable for the future,
So
like how much their additional funding sources are, if they're grants or whatever.
we were just saying, like, originally the question was just like, how do you plan to like continue to fund this project? But then we were like, we want them to be a little more specific.
Yeah,
And to say like grants.
Mhm.
So it's like, go find 3 grants that could be applicable to this.
Got it. So it
Do you
doesn't
think, like-
necessarily have to be that they
Have security.
have secured
no,
them.
they don't have to secure it.
So like maybe potential
Yeah.
like support of the project for
Yeah.
ongoing. Because
Because better.
yeah, there's the and if we did an event with all 3 groups got together and we wanted to do an event to highlight something, that's going to be really hard to like have additional funding to support an event as well.
Okay, so you think 3 is appropriate if they're just potential, not saying 3.
I still think 3 might be a lot when it's
like,
yeah.
it's like more than 1, I think, but
Yeah.
yeah, potentially. So yeah.
And that could be even finding a sponsor if you have an event like the next time you have the event, who potentially could be a sponsor.
Yeah, so
It could be
we're
like even
looking
USF.
for,
Maybe
a little bit
just
of
have, maybe just say identify at least 2, because if they have more, I'd like to know, like 2, that's it. I don't want it. But, I think at least that can, if they do have more, which would be great, I think that would encourage them to put in additional.
Under the budget, were you asking just for the budget for the money they're seeking, or
Yes.
the entire project?
Just the money they're seeking. So how will you use funds that we give you? Basically, like, if you had a budget sheet, we just didn't want to have them to have to like email something. So you're just trying to put it in here. So if you should have a budget sheet theoretically.
I mean, honestly, for our grants to the city, that's how we're just asking for the project budget too, not.
Right. We don't need to know.
Yeah, we don't need to know all the other stuff, just what you're using our money for. So I think that fits. Yeah.
So we're also doing this with extra funding. to.
Are you allowing the purchase of food itself? I don't know if that was already
think so.
mentioned.
That would be part of program supplies.
Okay.
Or maybe contracted services if you're like catering or something. But that is a good, yeah, definitely.
Because sometimes like you can pay for programmatic work or
Yeah.
administrative, but not food itself. So I
Mhm.
didn't know if that had already been mentioned.
I would say so, yeah.
Okay.
That's part of, yeah, program supplies.
Okay.
Any other questions or notes?
No, but can you send us like the draft of it for us to review on our own time?
Like, so there's a PDF or something.
Oh yeah. Because I think that would be helpful. Like I could take some time to really dig through it and
This actually looks nice. Not the last image. You print it as PDF, and then I can put it maybe on the, do you want it on the,
either whatever you want to do. If you put it on in the Google Drive, I can go find it.
song? I hate the one page at the end, so. Oops. Great, okay. I'll just save that, and I'll upload that, for you guys. Anything else for you good? That feels appropriate.
Yeah.
If there's anything you explicitly won't fund, you need to make sure.
Okay, that's a good note. I think honestly it's pretty open at this point.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll go over the city.
Yeah.
That's a good point though, if there's something very specific that we aren't funding. So we're trying to open them like June 9th, that's like, we think that takes, that's Monica's like the work. So it might be just in that like around then. This is not like a hard date when it's opening, but it's gonna be basically around the time you're finalizing your goals. So we may not have the goals out the moment it opens, but I don't think anyone's applying on Thursday. So if they are great work, and we'll just put out the priorities, but the goals will be out there while it's open. Like I said, you can, if you're gonna do anything that's gonna benefit the working group, that funding is also, this is the bucket for that. So if you want to try to recruit more people to join the group and you want to like host a lunch or something, I think that that's also appropriate here. Like outside of an actual working group meeting, there's more, it needs to be more around the project.
Honestly, I would rather give the money to an organization
Yeah,
than us hold an event, you know?
Yeah. So then for next meeting, if you want to look for some continuing education opportunities, we'd really like to use that money. Review that farm stop article. Was there another thing that you wanted people to review before? You might think there was that other.
The food is medicine, slide. So I'll try to figure out.
And then add for us all to look at the mini grant application.
Oh.
Yeah. So. So is it better to add it into our drive or on the platform?
On the platform, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
Like, so that can be available to everyone. They're not like editing or anything, and I think that I'm gonna. Mini grant application draft could also go on the platform, but I'm gonna put it in the resources so that it's not post, so you have to go find it, but if people want to look at it and comment, that's where it'll be. Right. All right, anything else we wanted to add before we do our evaluation?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so those are the rules for next time. And we're going to rate this meeting. Okay, let's see. She's not here, so I'm gonna just X hers out. All right. Cool. Honest participation. How would you rate this 1 through 5?
I'm gonna have to give it like a 3 because we're missing 2 in
People.
person and we didn't get the other
Yeah.
member.
Yeah.
I mean, I think overall I guess like
The people who are here participated.
Yeah. Did people participate? We only had 3 versus 6 or 7. That would be our goal, right?
Yeah.
Janai, how would you rate participation? You still with us?
Oh, I
Okay.
muted. Sorry. I would say 3 as well.
All right, Amanda?
I agree.
All right. Over to achievement, Nicole. Did we accomplish what we set out to accomplish?
I think so. I'll give us a 5. I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think we accomplished a lot. I agree with 5.
I'll go with 5 too.
Awesome. And how about listening, Nicole?
I would also give a 5 there. I think there was a lot of like input and feedback, and we are able to adjust based on that.
5.
Yep, same.
Scheduling. Did we stick to our agenda and use our time wisely?
I think so.
Yeah, we're perfect.
We got through everything. Yeah, 5.
5
Right.
as well.
Right. I think that is all. If you want me to talk about partner points a little bit, I know Andy's got it wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
I have another call out one too.
Yeah. I'm just gonna scoot back there and take
Awesome. I'm taking mine on
my
the
car, you know.
So I'd like to sidebar with you. So that'd be great. Like we could set up a time to just to talk about the. They think that there's such an opportunity